Am I the a-hole for humiliating my father in front of other family members? Hi, I'm not American. I, female in my early 20s, work 2 jobs. One of them is a corporate job in the industry I specialized in after uni in the morning. The other is a teaching job in the afternoon. I work from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. most days, but I chose to. That is true. My goal is to save up and buy a parcel of land to build on eventually. My dad has been unemployed for around a decade, and he has taken up the role of a stay-at-home husband but does very little chores and never cooks. I don't have any say in this because my mom asked me to stay out of their marriage arrangements, and so I do. Yesterday, my aunt, dad's cousin, and her husband were at my parents' house, and so was I, as I still live here. My aunt was flattering me and telling me how hardworking and responsible I was, to which I replied with similar compliments for her children. My dad went into the conversation and started to underestimate my efforts, saying how easy both my jobs were and how unworthy of any compliments I was for it. I politely cleared that they weren't all that easy and that they were meaningful to me, and of course tiresome to me. I said of course my jobs were more comfortable than agriculture or warehouse working, some of the jobs he worked in the past, but that they are equally as important. He got ruder and started saying I only knew how to whine and that working 2 jobs has no merit. He also added that I didn't even make a lot of money, and I refuted that I make a fair amount. I got offended and said he shouldn't be the one to speak, given I work 2 jobs and he works 0, and my salaries pay for a lot of our household expenses, more than is strictly fair. He said he keeps the house, but I said I do way more chores than him, as well as my mom. I dropped it and changed the topic after my aunt started scolding him for not appreciating my efforts. Later on, he screamed at me and called me an a-hole for defending myself and humiliating him in front of my aunt by saying he doesn't have a job. He said it is normal to talk bad about your own children's accomplishments and I should have taken it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, and it is not normal to talk bad about your children. You're supposed to be happy about them. Edit. Just to clarify, I meant it's not normal to talk bad about your child's hard work and achievements, and you're supposed to congratulate them for it. It's 100% not normal to put them down the amazing stuff they've done. Exactly. I take every chance I get to build up my children and recognize the efforts they put in. My teenage daughter had her first job last summer. It was an unpaid volunteer position, but it was absolutely work. I'm still bragging about it. She showed all the qualities of a hardworking, reliable person that you could ask for, and I'm very proud to be her father. I hope he's not the a-hole. Her dad needs to check himself on his entitled attitude. I didn't realize this until after my marriage. At my dad's speech, my husband pointed out how it was full of anecdotes that were about failings of mine. I guess I was so used to it that I didn't realize it. It felt like self-deprecating humor, except it was my dad and not me saying it. I still to this day probably downplay my accomplishments, and I wonder if it was a live fool or subtle digs. Not the a-hole. You pay for the majority of things, plus do most of the chores. And your father has the audacity to treat you this way? I think it's clear what you need to do. Time to leave and let him fend for himself. Yeah, he can't contribute, and I can't let my mom just pay for the 3 of us without contributing, so we end up going 60-40 most of the time. She makes more than me, but from 1 job. He doesn't like chores, and whenever he does them, he leaves those chores that would make my life easier out of the deal. Normal to talk bad about your children's accomplishments. Well, actually, most parents do the exact opposite. If he doesn't want to be seen as not contributing to the household, he needs to start actively contributing to the household, rather than belittling the efforts of others to appear better. Not the a-hole. I've been told he brags sometimes, but only if I'm not around. But he says things like, "Thanks to me, she's accomplished," or "I raised her so well that now she works as..." So I don't know how much of a praise to me it really is. Haha. Next story. Am I the a-hole for flipping out at my husband for canceling my daughter's job interview? My daughter, Mia, is 23 years old. She's a college graduate and recently started looking for a job. Her stepdad, my husband, has been begging her to come work at his company, but she refused because she said that most employees there are men, and that they make uncomfortable comments about women and that they make her feel uncomfortable. She went to the company many times and felt uncomfortable. She said that in those 30 to 40-minute visits, she couldn't handle the negative vibe, so she couldn't imagine working there 8+ hours every day. My husband insisted, and basically gave her a pros list that he thought is enough to make her reconsider. She still refused. Her best friend found her a job opportunity at a company that's well known in our area, and Mia was excited beyond measure. She even went shopping for new clothes just for the interview. However, the day of the interview, I got a call from her crying saying her interview was cancelled. I was confused, thinking something must have gone wrong, but she said that her stepdad got home and told her he cancelled the interview using her email, which led to an argument. I was livid. I went home and I flipped out at him. Like I just lost it on him and he was shocked by my reaction. He defended himself, saying he did this for her own good and that he was frustrated after she kept turning down his offer to join him at a company. He lashed out, saying that instead of siding with her, I should be encouraging her to join the company and help make it better, instead of working for others. I got out of the room and he shut the door and stayed inside the whole time. We still aren't on speaking terms, but he occasionally threw in how he just wanted what's best for the whole family. But now Mia missed an opportunity to work with a respectable company and gain the benefits that would help her progress in her career. Not the a-hole. Your daughter is an adult. She gets to make adult decisions. One of them is not working for her stepfather. See if she can't reschedule that interview. Something to the effect of, "Good morning, person. My profuse apologies for the previous email and confusion. This account was accessed by somebody who does not represent me and should not have the authority to speak on my behalf. I have taken steps to secure my email account so that this does not happen again. Would you be so kind to allow me to reschedule my interview?" Edit. In case you, or anybody else reading, decides to take this advice, I honestly wouldn't add or remove any detail from this example. Too much detail makes it sound like you have excuses. Too little makes it sound like you don't care enough. Say exactly what information you would need to know if the roles were swapped. No more, no less. Please encourage her to do this, OP. If she needs a witness, ensure her that would back up her statement if need be. Not the a-hole, but seriously, your husband sucks, and so does his company. He created a company with an environment that is super misogynistic and straight up toxic for women. Birds of the same feather flock together, OP. He is giving off super creepy and very controlling vibes. Yes, his refusal to accept multiple no's from a young woman is disturbing, as is his obsession to have Mia working at his company. Not the a-hole. Is he normally this domineering and controlling? Dude straight up hacked her emails and ruined an opportunity that she actually wanted. Your daughter has good judgment in not wanting to work anywhere near him. Not to mention he practically bragged about it to the daughter after he did it, and then was shocked when Opie was upset. Sounds like this guy's not used to being told no, or opposed in any way. Some serious red flags here. I hope Opie leaves him. I'd never put up with someone doing that to my kid. Not the a-hole. Report this to the police. What your husband did was commit fraud, and possibly illegally accessed your daughter's email as well. Make it clear to your husband that he's making choices that ensure his daughter will not speak to him ever again. Consider whether you want to spend your life with somebody who could do this to someone he claims to love. If your daughter still lives at home, please do what you can to get her out of there and away from your abusive husband. Exactly. And not only make it clear that the daughter will not speak to him, but Opie will not speak to him either. Like he legit has to find a way to resolve this in the best way for the daughter, or the husband would have to leave, in my opinion. Next story. Am I the a-hole for putting a debt on my daughter? My wife and I are in the fortunate position of being wealthy. We had to work our butts off to get where we are, and we never forget where we came from. Our kids grew up rich kids, but we never spoiled them even when we could have. They went to nice schools, had nice things, but they also had summer jobs and after-school jobs to pay for their own extras. We also push philanthropy in our family, so our kids recognize they're privileged and that our life isn't even remotely how regular people live. I'd say for the most part, our kids have grown up to be respectful and good people. Our oldest children are twin boys and their sister, who is 18 months younger than them. All three are in college now. Our youngest two are in 8th grade. I got a call from our bank a couple days ago, saying that someone had cashed a check that was charged to our bank account in the amount of about $62,000, and that the check had been made out to the tuition office of the university my oldest 3 kids attend. Naturally, I investigated the matter myself with the university and got some answers. I pieced together that one of my kids snagged my checkbook and wrote a tuition check for a friend of theirs. There's a much bigger story behind why this kid couldn't pay, but that's private, and my wife and I agreed to fund this young person's education because of their private struggles. I grilled my kids and figured out that it was our daughter, Joanna. Joanna was apologetic, but she was also quite insistent that she stood behind her actions. I respect my daughter for her convictions, and she really did have good reasons for why she did it. But the fact remains that she stole and then she hid it. Joanna asked what her punishment is, and I told her to get a job because she now owes her mother and I $62,000. Here's the thing. I don't expect Joanna to pay us back, and if she came to me tomorrow with the money, I wouldn't take it. What I want is to see an effort made, an acknowledgement of her actions and the consequences. If I see that she's actively trying, I'll tell her that she doesn't have to pay me back. She's my kid and I love her, so all I want is for her to learn a lesson. But Joanna doesn't know all this. All she thinks is that she owes me $62,000. So naturally, I'm a horrible father and a very mean person. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I actually think you should follow through and expect her to pay it back in full. Same. Otherwise, she'll think from now on, oh, I just have to do what he wants for a couple weeks and I'll be good. I think you're spot on for how you're addressing the sneaking, stealing, and lies. I'm sure you made it clear that she had to come to you and made a case for helping this person out. There would have been no consequence, but that the disciplinary action is a result of the dishonesty and theft, not the a-hole. That's the thing. Had she come to me and explained what was going on with this friend of hers, a nice kid we've known since her freshman year, would have been happy to pay. What is money and having wealth if you aren't going to help those who need it? We can't understand why she'd hide and lie, and sneak and steal since we've never once denied using our money for good. I have a whole scholarship fund set up at my own alma mater to send kids to college. This kind of thing is my favorite kind of giving. I'd be more concerned about the stealing. She could go to prison for this kind of thing. You don't want her to suffer those consequences, but her just glossing over theft and fraud doesn't bode well for her future. If she did this to anyone else or anywhere else, her future could be over. If she knew you'd foot the bill, what was the impetus behind her actions? Other than to see if she could get away with it. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for going through my daughter's room while she was asleep? Hello, I, 49 female, have a 17-year-old daughter. Throughout middle and high school, she has had some problems with smoking weed and vaping. I have gone through her room and belongings on several occasions when she has not been home to try and make sure she's not doing anything illegal. And most of the time, I don't find anything, but I can never be too sure. She's over a month into her senior year and has really let her grades slip. She is normally a straight A AP student, but she has several B's in the grade book right now. I am very disappointed in her as this is her senior year and she should not be screwing around like this. Last night while she was asleep, I decided to go through her room because I figured if her grades were this poor, she must be misbehaving. I looked through her drawers and closet, but I couldn't find anything, so I decided to look through her phone. To do this, I had to get on her bed and reach over as she sleeps with it by her pillow facing the wall. While grabbing her phone, I saw her wallet and decided to look through that too. I gave up on looking through her phone because I couldn't figure out her password, so I opened her wallet and started looking through it. In her wallet, I found an empty vape pod and saw red. I woke her up at about 5:30 and confronted her about it. She told me that she didn't even know it was in her wallet, and that she didn't even understand why I was mad because I know she quit months ago. She then asked me why I was going through her stuff in the middle of the night, especially since she gave me no reason to. And then she said I was an a-hole and completely betrayed her trust. So am I the a-hole for going through my daughter's room while she was sleeping? Can't wait to see you back here on your am I the a-hole for causing my daughter to go no contact the moment she turned 18? It's weed, not heroin. She's 17 and an academic top performer. What are you getting this worked up over, lady? Chill the heck out, Mom. You're the a-hole. Sounds like Mama probably could benefit from smoking a little herself. My parents treated me this exact way growing up, despite me being top of my class for my entire youth. Messed me up about trusting persons in authority majorly. I hardly talk to them today. Go figure. Yeah, I was top of my class, but my parents luckily were pretty chill about grades. My grades slipped senior year of high school because I was burned out. High school grades matter so little in the grand scheme of things. Every good chance the reason the daughter was smoking is to deal with the stress the mom is putting her under. One of my high school best friends was a consistent B and C student. Decided to buckle down in college and got into a top med school. And then I had friends who were so burned out after high school that they floundered in college. What mom is doing isn't helping her daughter at all. You're the a-hole. Her grade slipped from A to B and she's screwing around? How tiger mom of you. As a parent, you certainly have a right to have a say in what your child does while they still live with you, to a point. You are exhibiting zero trust in your daughter to the point that you are seizing opportunities to ease your extreme paranoia over what your daughter does behind your back. You absolutely violated her trust. Why would you trust you? She's given you zero reason to suspect her of screwing around, except apparently a slight drop in grades, which honestly doesn't call for what you did. Seriously think about the relationship you want to have with your daughter because she will soon become an adult. And if you keep expressing this level of paranoia and overprotection, she's going to eventually want to cut you out of her life. Further, she won't want to come to you for help or advice because she won't be able to trust you. What if she gets in trouble when she's at college or working, and she desperately needs someone to help her, but she can't think of anyone because her mother would just mistreat her for getting into trouble? I had this kind of parent, and I got kicked out because of a fight about how to fold towels. You're the a-hole for sure. I have a great job, and 12 years later, no one has ever looked at my high school or college grades. Just that I have a degree. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I hope she never has kids? I'm 22, female. I have 3-year-old twin boys and I had a baby girl not even 2 days ago. My sister Jody is 34 and has been suffering with infertility for the past 10 years as well as repeated miscarriages. I used to feel really bad for her and also a bit guilty as I got pregnant twice while being on contraception. It caused some tension between us when I was pregnant with my twins because she was jealous and I was already feeling intense guilt. This time around, she wasn't as jealous, but I still felt it was unfair. As my husband and I have decided we are done having kids, I offered to be a surrogate for my sister as soon as I'm cleared after this baby, and she seemed like she was absolutely over the moon with that. In turn, she offered to watch the twins while I was in labor with my new baby, which was a relief on my part. I went into labor on Thursday morning and Jody came over to watch the kids while my husband and I went to the hospital. She seemed like she was in a great mood and promptly rushed us out the door. Everything seemed fine until we got home this morning to find thousands worth of destruction to pretty much every baby item we've purchased. Even the crib mattress was torn open. Everything was ruined. Jody tried to pin it on the twins, but they're 3, and this level of destruction had to have been done by an adult. My twins can't even reach some of the stuff that was destroyed, and they certainly do not know how to open diaper packages and tear them apart. I know kids, especially toddlers, can do a lot of damage in a short time, but I also know my children aren't capable of doing what happened. I told my sister to get the heck out of my home and stay away from me and my family. I got really angry, and I said a lot of stuff I shouldn't have, but one of them was, I hope you never have a child, and if you do, then I'll tell it exactly what you've done to mine. I told her we can't afford to fix the damages caused, but since she still denies it and she won't cough up, I told her because of her the baby doesn't even have a safe space to sleep. My parents got wind of what I said, and even after I explained the situation, they still think I'm being an a-hole for saying something so vile to my sister after all she's done for us. Obviously, my judgment is clouded, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Info. Can you tell us more about the damage and why it had to have been done by an adult? Not the a-hole, by the way. Even if it was the toddlers, she should have prevented them, obviously. But I'm just flabbergasted that an adult woman would do this after you offered such a generous favor. A lot of the damage was beyond what my toddlers can do. For a start, the baby monitor was taken off the wall, and to get to that, my husband needed a step ladder. No chair in the world would have made them tall enough to reach it. I mentioned in another comment the entire crib was smashed and mattress cut up. My boys can climb out of cribs, but they cannot climb in. So there's no way they could have gotten the mattress out, and if they did, there's no way it could have gotten cut up. There was also a child-proof handle on the door, and I've tested them countless times and boys don't know how to open it yet. So unless the door was open for them, they couldn't have gotten in. A picture painted for us framed on the wall, again out of reach of the boys. It was smashed. And since they're barefoot 100% of the time at home, one or both would have gotten cut, but neither of them have a scratch anywhere on their body. Lastly, both boys denied it, and I believe them. Not the a-hole. Your sister flew into a jealous rage when faced with all the things she wants and doesn't have. Can you imagine how terrifying that was for your twins? Those poor babies. OP, you need to file a police report for destruction of property and maybe even contact CPS. Your sister is unwell and should not be allowed to provide care to children. You didn't know, but now you do. Never let your sister anywhere near you or your children. Your sister needs mental health services and she's not going to get them if your parents rather pass the blame on to you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister the truth about why I moved out the day I turned 18? When I'm 23 female was 10 years old, my parents divorced. My dad was so mean in the way he spoke to my mom. He always made her do all the housework and difficult parenting, but would swoop in to be the fun parent and apologize to my siblings who died for her behavior. If I'm honest, for a while I believed all the things he said about my mom, and I hated her for years. I still feel so guilty about it too. My dad's friend was my mother's boss at the time of their separation. I don't know if my dad got mom fired, but I assume he did because she lost her job the day after she left him. He made more money than she did. His name was on the house, and he knew she didn't have the resources to dispute him in court for very long. So he drew the process out for as long as possible until my mom ended up homeless and living in her car. She lost custody of all three of us and had to move to another state to stay with her sister because she couldn't find work here without an address. He cut her off from us, and we didn't talk for years. As soon as my mom was gone, my dad began treating me the way he had treated her. It was a total switch from the man I'd grown up with. All of a sudden, it was like he hated me. It took that total 180 degree for me to realize what had happened between him and my mom. I pieced together everything over the next few years, went through some documents from the divorce that confirmed what I suspected. And by the time I was 16, I started saving money to move out as soon as possible. And at midnight on my 18th, I took my things and left. I later reconnected with my mom too. I've done pretty well for myself after leaving. I have a job, an apartment, a baby. I'm happy with my life. My sister contacted me a few days ago. She just turned 18 and she wanted to see me. We met at a park and talked for a while. When she asked me why I left, I tried to lie and come up with better answers, but she kept pressing, so I told her the truth. All of it, not sparing the details. She didn't respond well to it. She told me our dad would have never done those things, that our mom was the problem. She said she didn't believe me about any of it, and then she stormed off. I told our mom what happened, and she said that I shouldn't have told my sister at all. She thinks that it wasn't fair for me to shatter her reality like that, because she's just a kid and our dad is still her hero. I know what it's like to have that reality-shattering moment, and it sucks. But I mean, she asked for the truth. Was I wrong to give it to her? Not today, Hall. She insisted that you tell her the real reason why you left. She's technically an adult. She should have expected the answer to be unpleasant, because why would you have left the minute you could otherwise? From what I understand, my dad told her and my younger brother that he and I had a disagreement about something, and the whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. So she wasn't really expecting my actual answer at all. And she just believed that an 18-year-old would leave home because of a simple misunderstanding? Why would her dad, who she thinks is a hero, allow a simple misunderstanding to permanently damage his relationship with his daughter? Honestly, I don't blame her if that's what she really believed. He's incredibly manipulative. There was definitely a time in my life where if he had told me the sky was green, I would have listened. Trying to question him about anything would result in him making you feel like you were the crazy one. He more than likely framed the whole thing as me being unwilling and unreasonable, and him being the ever-doting father who was heartbroken by me abandoning them and leaving. Not the a-hole. It sucks, but you told an 18-year-old, not a 5-year-old. As long as you said factual things that you could share, you did nothing wrong. Your mother is wrong, but not an a-hole. I imagine what she went through is traumatic and probably colors how you should handle things. By the way, I understand and appreciate why you feel guilt for believing your father. However, for what it's worth, you were an actual kid being manipulated by your father. That doesn't make things better for how your mother might feel, but it wasn't your fault. Thank you. My mama said she doesn't blame me for being manipulated by him and that she understands why I felt the way I did towards her. I know rationally that I was only a kid and I didn't know the truth, so it couldn't have been my fault. But as an adult now, it's still hard to accept and remember that sometimes. I'm sure I'll get to that point eventually though. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my husband after I found that he was hiding my son's motorcycle? I got my son a 7K motorcycle for his 18th birthday this past June. My son is obsessed with automobiles and loves motorcycles. In his room, he has plenty of models and posters of motorcycles of all types. His bi-dad passed away when he was just 12, and now I'm married to my current husband and he has kids of his own. My husband has always been against my son's interest in motorcycles. He thinks I'm encouraging him to be reckless, distracting him from school, and by extension his future, and spoiling him and blowing away money by spending $7,000 on a motorcycle. This caused some tension between him and my son, so I told him to stop complaining about it. Around 2 weeks ago, my son's motorcycle went missing. We opened a police report, but nothing came out of it. It just disappeared. My husband had a smirk on his face the entire time, just walking around saying, "I told you so. You just wasted your money." This was unbearable to hear, to be quite honest. My mother-in-law visited a few days ago. She was talking about the other house my husband owns and mentioned seeing a motorcycle, one that's similar to the one that we lost in my husband's garage while she was cleaning it. She goes to clean that house weekly even though it's empty, as my husband plans on giving it to his kids as inheritance. I was puzzled, so I asked if she was certain, but she showed me a photo she took of it which confirmed that it was indeed my son's motorcycle. I immediately rushed to call my husband and confront him about it. He admitted that he took and hid a motorcycle in his garage as a last resort, after me and his stepson kept brushing him and his thoughts off about the $7,000 being spent on something unnecessary, and that could cause issues. I blew up at him demanding he return it, but he refused and told me he had been considering selling it and giving the money back to me so I could use it wisely this time. I told him I was serious and that I'd call the police. He literally said, "This is a family matter and cops can't do anything about it." I had enough, so I called the cops as soon as I ended the call with him. The motorcycle was found and returned, but my husband had to be taken in since there was an open file about the motorcycle going missing. He was let go eventually, but he was livid with me. He came home yelling about how awful what I did was, and how crazy my behavior was. I refused to engage in the argument, but he told his entire family about it, and they judged me for calling the police on my own husband, even though I already asked him to return it. He said he was just looking out for my son, and that one day we'll realize that he was right, but only when it's too late. My son isn't speaking to me or my husband. I feel horrible about the whole situation, and I'm starting to think I handled this the wrong way. Now for the top comments. Not Day Hall. The debate about whether a motorcycle is a good gift for an 18-year-old is irrelevant. Completely. Red herring. Ignore any responses based on this. Your husband stole an item and hid it, then allowed you to go to the police about it, smugly knowing they wouldn't turn up anything, and lied to you either overtly or by omission about it. When confronted, he doubled down. No remorse, no contrition. You were right to call him out. You were right to involve the police when he threatened to sell it against your wishes. And my recommendation would be to begin divorce proceedings, because this man does not have any respect for you whatsoever. He's already proven he will commit crimes and file false police reports in order to get his way. This is a your son or your husband situation. Please choose your child. I also think it's highly telling his family thinks someone shouldn't go to the police if it's something their husband did. It's apologism and one step away from saying you shouldn't press charges if he hits you. Be careful with him. He's been proven to want to cause you and your son harm for the sake of knowing better than you. I'm not sure if I'd even call it a choice between the husband and the son. It's a choice between being able to make your own decisions or becoming a servant to the pompous creature you're married to. Get out! Not Day Hall. Once you gave the motorcycle to your son, it became your son's property and not the property of your husband's to take. Additionally, taking it and hiding it like that and not coping to it after you filed a police report is really horrible. He literally stole the motorcycle. I would seriously rethink staying married to him. Who the heck does he think he is to teach a lesson in that way? Oh, and yeah, you did the right thing calling the police on him. Maybe next time he will rethink doing something so stupid. I'm trying to also figure out stepdad's logic with this, cause once the police report was made, it's on record with a plate and VIN. Anyone who tried selling to may look it up for issues or get caught with it later. It will come back to stepdad eventually. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for walking my sister down the aisle when our mother's husband believed he would be the one to do it? My sister got married on Saturday. He asked me several months ago to walk her down the aisle and to have a dance to honor our dad. I said, of course. Our dad died when I was 11 and she was 7, and we both have memories of him, and she wanted to honor him and feel connected to him on the day and saw me as the best person for the job. So, I walked her to her husband and danced to the song our dad used to sing to us. Our mother remarried before our dad was a year gone. Her husband has no children and was unable to have kids of his own. So he made a big attempt to take over our dad's place and be regarded as dad, which he wasn't. Despite knowing this and never being asked, he assumed he would be fulfilling father of the bride duties at my sister's wedding. And on the day he learned it was me she asked, he was visibly upset. I had an idea he was expecting it, but said nothing. Neither did she. At the reception, he confronted me and asked why I would do it when he's right there, and how was I more deserving than him, her father figure. I told him it was my sister's choice, and she wanted me so we could honor our dad. He told me he deserved better than to be completely ignored in the wedding, and treated like he was not a parent and not part of our family for the last 15 years. I shrugged, which angered him even more. He and my mom are both furious at me for saying yes when I knew he wanted to do it. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Why are they even blaming you? It's your sister's wedding and her choice. I'm not suggesting she's an a-hole for asking you to do it at all. But it was her decision. All you did was agree to it. Just a wild guess, but they might have thought that Opie saying no would mean mom's husband should have been asked. People like that will always look for someone to blame. My mother always wanted to walk me down the aisle and always said no, that it would be my dad. Divorced since I was 6. The day my dad died last year and my little brother and I realized he would never see us married, I was getting married in November. Bro was 25, 11 years younger and my stepmom's and dad's child. So he offered to walk me to represent our father. It was a very special moment between the two of us. When I was planning the wedding, my mom jumped up and down clapping and happy squealing, saying, "Yes, your dad's dead. Now I can walk you down the aisle." She stopped talking to me for 3 months when I told her. It was all about how I didn't respect her. Should have had her even when he was alive. Her. We eloped and my brother was there by my side. You cannot demand a position in someone's life or wedding. It has to be earned. Opie's parents are just looking at someone to blame and take it out on. Not the a-hole. He doesn't understand that he may be your mom's husband, but he isn't your dad. I also didn't like that stepdad credits himself for being Opie's dad for 15 years, when Opie and sister lost their bio father at 11 and 7. Opie was an adult 7 years later or 6 years after their mom remarried. But stepdad continues to count so he can get more credit than the father that raised the kids from infancy. Those are pretty formative years. In addition to that, many people don't stop needing or getting support from their parents at 18. Dude's not asking for more credit than their bio dad. He's just saying he did his best to step in and fill the role. Over that 15 years, we have no idea how much support and whatnot he's provided for them. Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister-in-law and her family a luxury vacation? I travel a lot for work, so I have so many hotel and airline points it is crazy. This summer, I am taking my family to Disney World and we are going to stay at one of the resorts on the property. My sister-in-law and her family had a hard time during the pandemic, so I decided to do something nice and invite them along. My treat. I said I would pay for their flights, hotel, and park tickets. Everyone was excited until she started talking to my wife. Now, she is upset that we are staying at one of the resorts and they have to stay in Disney Springs. Apparently, I am being cheap by using points for their hotel, instead of just paying for them to stay at the same resort as us. My wife told her sister and brother-in-law to STFU and accept the gift, but they didn't. They told my in-laws that I was making their kids jealous by not letting them enjoy the same stuff as us. To be clear, the hotel I booked for them is very nice. It's just not the Grand Floridian. So I finally talked to them and gave them the choice of accepting my gift or not coming, since I could still cancel their reservations. They started yelling at me for being an a-hole and taking something away from their children. I had talked to them like adults, but when they started screaming, their kids heard them and found out that they might not be going. Now their kids are angry at their parents for possibly messing up their vacation, and now I'm the bigger a-hole for making them look bad in front of their kids. Am I the a-hole? Let me get this straight. You're gifting them airline tickets, park tickets, and a nice hotel, and they demand more? Cancel their tickets immediately. For their benefit too, so they drop this entitled idiocy forever. So the kids learn you get nothing if you're being an A, so they don't try to walk all over you in the future. Not the a-hole, that would be them. Poor kids. Heck, I'll take this amazing gift with endless gratitude. Disney Springs got 4.85 over 5 stars. I'll be so happy and grateful if anyone did this for me. Definitely an r/choosing beggar situation. OP should take the kids, leave ungrateful sister-in-law and brother-in-law behind. Your sister-in-law could have chosen this route. Your uncle is just amazing and is offering us this unforgettable trip. We will be staying at a different location but doing all the parks and activities together. This will give us chance to have some time with just us as a family too. Aren't we lucky to have such generous people in our family? We are really so blessed. But alas, I want more. Based on what Opie wrote, it seems the kids did know how lucky they were and are angry at their parents for potentially messing this up. Sad that the kids are more mature than their parents. Just take the kids. Leave those entitled parents. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not putting my sister's wedding expenses on my credit card and humiliating her? I, 27 female, was the only person in my family to go to college and get out of poverty. My family is from a small town, and we struggled a lot growing up. I got out, but it's hard because I make good salary now and my family expects me to share it. I still have student loans and bills to pay, but they seem to think I'm rolling in money. I also bought an apartment in 2019, and when my parents found out, they called me selfish and wanted me to pay for their expenses. I have loaned money to my parents, about $800, and they forgot they borrowed money and claims I forgot that I gave it as a gift and said they didn't need to repay. My sister and I used to have a good relationship, but once I left for college and did better, our relationship got more strained. She got married, and I came back a few days before the wedding to help her set everything up. We went to the grocery store and she bought $1,700 worth of groceries as we were cooking it for the wedding. Her card was denied, and she tried a few but they were all denied. We stepped aside and she called a credit card company to find out she nearly maxed out her cards. She started to panic and checked her accounts and found out she has $200 left in her checking account. I told her to check her savings and she snapped back she didn't have any, and our mom checked her card and still had $600. So she said she would cover $600 and volunteered me for the other $1,100. I told them I didn't have the money. I did, but I don't think my sister would have the money to pay me back. My sister demanded to see proof that I had maxed out my credit cards and I didn't have any money in my checking. And I told her I don't have to give her proof, I just don't have the money. She started crying and yelling at me that I was looking down on her for being broke, and she knew I have the money. I'm just being stingy. My mom started on me too, telling me that people are staring and people are going to gossip about this. And I was humiliating my sister for making it seem like she couldn't even afford her own wedding. I had enough and walked out. I told them I'd had it with them, expecting me to pay for everything. I walked back to my parents' house, and my sister sent me a text saying I was no longer welcome to the wedding. I drove home without another word, and I'm wondering if I should have just put the groceries on my card to keep the peace. People are going to gossip about this, and I was humiliating my sister for making it seem like she couldn't even afford her own wedding. Shaking my head, she can't afford it. She did this herself. Not a holopy and stop playing ATM for the family. I'm still in awe at $1,700 worth of groceries. That sounds like a feast. Not a holopy. I've discovered that people who never really had money don't understand that you can't just spend willy-nilly when you're in a better financial situation. You still have to pay for housing, food, bills, insurance, savings, etc. You may do well now, but you need a safety net should anything happen and you can't work. You don't owe your family anything. There is always a way out of a bad financial situation if you're willing to research and do the work. I'm stuck at she had $1,700 in groceries in her cart and had no plan to pay for them. You can't convince me that she wasn't aware of her balance or how close to limit she was. She walked into that store, loaded those carts, fully expecting her sister to pay. She created a situation, brought on her own humiliation, and seeded a rumor mill. She should have been prepared with a budget and guaranteed payment before placing one item in her cart. Not a holopy. Your sister and your parents are a-holes. Not the a-hole. You didn't make it look like she can't afford her own wedding, because she actually can't afford her own wedding. Setting aside the weddings are already grossly overly expensive. It's clear she didn't plan, save, or budget well for this. None of which is something you're responsible for. If the family is just going to treat you like a piggy bank, then just removing yourself from the situation sounds like the best move. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pitch in money toward my sister-in-law's IVF treatments and telling her and my brother that their future children are not my responsibility? My brother Reed and sister-in-law Nora have always wanted children. However, they are unable to conceive naturally. Nora had multiple ovarian cysts and eventually needed to have both her ovaries removed as a teenager. Reed and Nora are in their early 30s and are very urgent about needing to try sooner than ever because they say they are approaching an age where IVF success rates start to decline. Because of Nora's past medical issues, I am told that she will need extra care and her round of treatments will be especially expensive, a little over $27,000. Reed and Nora already have $9,000 set aside in savings for IVF treatments. They've raised $1,000 from friends. The rest of the family is pitching in smaller amounts as well. My mother is giving $2,000. Nora's sister Lauren is giving $1,000. And her parents are giving $4,000, which leaves about $10,000 left. Their insurance will not help to cover it because they don't consider it a medically necessary procedure. Reed and Nora have also had difficulty qualifying for an IVF loan as they have poor credit. So now Reed and Nora are asking me to help because according to the loan advisor, I am allowed to take out the loan on Reed and Nora's behalf. $10,000 is a huge ask for me. And the fact that Reed and Nora have poor credits shows they already don't have a good track record of paying back loans. When I questioned why they didn't ask Lauren, they claimed they couldn't because she isn't single and childless like I am. They see it as me not having any dependents. My mother and parents-in-law don't have a lot of savings, and their early mentioned donations were already a huge gift for them. It takes a long time to correct a bad credit score, and it makes things much more difficult. And as harsh as it is to say, I don't want to take out thousands of dollars in a loan for a procedure that has a good chance of not even working. So I told Reed and Nora no, and that their future children are not my responsibility. I also wanted to put my foot down now, because next it's gonna be a private school tuition or a college fund, and that shouldn't be my responsibility just because I am currently single and childless. Nora was obviously disappointed but told me she respected my choice. Reed was angry. He told me that he would remember this for when I am ever in a time of need, so that I will know how it feels to have family turn their back on me. The rest of the family members have essentially told me, we're not mad at you, just disappointed. Because Nora worried for years that she would never be able to have children or be a mother. They say Reed and Nora would be wonderful parents, and is it right that they can't conceive naturally, which I do agree with. However, I still stand by Nora and Reed's future children not being my responsibility. I don't think it's fair that I should delay or give up the possibility of starting my own family in order to finance Reed and Nora's. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. And as a mom, I wonder if they can afford having a child if they can't even take a $10K loan. I agree, but this is a bad take. It's not the same spending $27K in a single instance of treatment than spending the same amount over a year or two. I don't have $10K right now, nor can I take a loan for that amount, but my salary would be more than enough to sustain me and a child and even save a little over time. It's not a bad take, because you can qualify for the hypothetical loan, and this couple cannot. If they don't have $10 for the procedure and their credit is too poor to qualify for the loan, they can't afford a child. Yeah, it's not a bad take, especially for the first few years of the child's life where basically one parent is crippled if you're middle class or below, taking care of the child and not earning. Not to mention they're already struggling to keep their finances up without children. Not the a-hole. Oh hell no, you are not the a-hole. That is not your responsibility. I'm sorry they are struggling, but common sense would beg the question, if they cannot afford IVF, how could they afford a child? The treatment may not even be successful. In addition, being single and childless/child-free doesn't mean you don't have your own obligations and causes to which you'd want your money to go. Best of luck to you. Also, being single and childless/child-free doesn't mean brother/sister-in-law are entitled to OP financing their dream. It's a shame for anyone who wants children to have to deal with not being able to have them, but that doesn't mean OP is obligated to fund this procedure. If anyone, it should be her parents scraping the rest together to help their daughter. I'd hate to think the family is making this about OP having a snooty child-free attitude, or OP enforcing their convictions onto others. It's not about that at all, and just brings us back to OP not being obligated to fund this, regardless of his/her choice and lifestyle. Not a-hole. Never loan money or co-sign a note for people who can't get a loan on their own. There's a reason banks reject them. It's astounding to me that people are so brazen that you should put your financial stability at risk just because they want you to. That's nuts. Finally, maybe Reed and Nora should wrap their heads around the idea that they cannot afford IVF and should consider something radical, like adoption. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother it was a dumb decision to invite his new girlfriend over for our nephew's birthday, and I understand why our brother-in-law uninvited him? My 20 male brother Ron, 27 male, met his late girlfriend Linda when they were 16, and they started dating shortly after. To say the family adored her would be an understatement. Linda was beautiful, smart, and had an amazing sense of humor. She's been part of the family for so long that most of us don't remember a time without her. Most of our best memories have her in them. Linda was very close to my nephew Drew, 6 male. Drew is disabled and autistic, so he has a hard time connecting to other people. I don't know how to describe the relationship between Drew and Linda. They just sort of clicked. From the moment he was born, she was his best friend and would often watch him over. Sadly, Linda passed away at the end of January after she was hit by a drunk driver. They were still together when that happened. The entire family was devastated and we are still mourning her. Drew took it especially hard, since he doesn't really grasp what death means yet. He constantly asks where Linda is and when she'll be coming back, sometimes going as far as having full-blown meltdowns because he misses her so much. He is currently attending therapy to learn how to process his grief, but it's a slow progress. Drew's birthday is in 2 weeks, and my sister and brother-in-law sent out invitations to everyone in the family asking who can come. Birthdays are a big deal in our family and are usually an over-the-top event with catering, so it's necessary to confirm the number of guests. Apparently, Ron wrote that he'll come with Gia, a new girlfriend he's hoping to introduce to the family. And now most of the family is angry at him for moving on so quickly. I personally think it's none of my business, and I'm not going to tell him what to do or how to live his life. However, bringing a new partner over to his nephew's birthday when he knows how said nephew is so attached to his ex and is still mourning her is idiotic at best, and cruel at worst. Brother-in-law told Ron that if he's planning on bringing that girl over for Drew's birthday, he shouldn't bother coming at all. Ron called me to complain, and I told him the same thing. He shouldn't bring her over. Ron called me an a-hole and a bad brother. He said that he's finally happy again after Linda's death. And why is it so hard for us to accept that he moved on and support his relationship? I told him I'm happy to hear he's doing well, and I'm sure the family would someday love to meet the girl that makes him so happy. But I'm standing by my opinion that inviting her now was a dumb decision on his part, and he chose the worst possible time and place to introduce someone new to the family. Not the a-hole. An autistic kid's birthday is really not the time to be introducing new people, particularly when the kid in question hasn't even processed that Linda is gone yet. Also, Linda passed away 4 months ago, and he is already ready to introduce a new girlfriend? Well, your brother sure moved on fast. Who knows how anyone would behave when a close loved one dies? Poor bloke is probably in pieces and looking for some sort of comfort from a new relationship and his family. Not saying it's the right time to introduce her, but Christ, have some compassion for the poor man. His long-term partner died not long ago. Surely this is the time for families to be there for each other. People cope however they can. This is something I'd call a rebound. Sometimes rebounds are necessary if you can't take it anymore and need distraction, but that's just me. Had a beloved friend pass suddenly, and her husband was destroyed. Also went into a new relationship within 3 months. It didn't end well. Then had a series of back-to-back. That didn't end well. He was looking for comfort, and this was the only way he thought he could get it. It's been a long time, almost 20 years, and is finally alone for a bit. He still goes to her grave, at least weekly, and has a beer with her. There were side eyes, but I always understood. He honestly hasn't gotten over it. He just didn't know what to do, so he kept trying to replace her. Figured out that he couldn't, and began to process it. Not a-hole. I don't think your brother should be punished for finding happiness with someone new, and shouldn't be held to your family's timetable for grief. But Drew's birthday is the wrong time to introduce her to the family, given how young Drew is and how attached he was to Linda. Regardless, the autistic nephew's birthday is not the place for this. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay a bill my in-laws stuck us with? I, 31 female, and my new husband, 33 male, are in a bit of a dilemma with his parents. For context, our wedding was around 2.5 weeks ago and we immediately left for our honeymoon. We also provided both of our parents instructions on how to get into our home in case of emergency. I will do my best to recount the story with zero emotion or from a neutral perspective and stick to the facts so that I don't influence your decision. So we returned from our honeymoon to a new garage lift installed in our home. We did not need or want a new garage lift, and it wasn't even in our radar of things to fix. The previous one in place worked completely fine, although a bit old. His dad was super excited about it, and we did find it to be a crossed boundary on its own. But then he handed us the bill and said it is due in a week. We obviously did not budget for this, and my husband told his parents that. They did not care and told us to figure out a way to pay, even suggested using some of our wedding gift money to pay the bill. About a week ago, his dad said that he understood where we were coming from, that it was his idea to do the garage, and that it was a gift, so he would cover the payment. Please keep in mind that we've said nothing about a crossed boundary. Last night, they called us on speakerphone and his dad asked if we had paid the bill yet. We said that we had not, as he told us he would pay. His mom yelled, "Absolutely not." The parents are going on a trip over Thanksgiving. So in an attempt to get them to empathize with our situation, my husband asked how they would feel if we made a change to their home on something they hadn't budgeted for, or even needed while they were away, and handed them the bill upon return. His mom hung up the phone and has blocked his calls ever since. She texted him this morning saying, "You are rude. Dad and I do not deserve this disrespect and we are done with you." Am I completely effing nuts? / are we the a-holes? Edited to add, it is such a weight off of my shoulders to have so many of you saying I'm not the a-hole. Honestly, all I could picture is them sitting at home having the same conversation we're having here, but they think we're the a-holes. So to answer some questions, the contractor is their very close friend. It is his name, with our address on the invoice, which could be why the bill wasn't paid up front or immediately after the work was completed. I've had a lot of questions about what I mean by garage lift. Truly, I don't even know what it is, but the box says Lift Master and is the square thing on the ceiling of the garage that lifts your garage door. Oddly, we have two, and they only replaced the one side. That one is much older than the other side. There was zero rationale on why they decided to do this. This is not a new behavior at all. They constantly cross boundaries and act angry / upset at our attempts at setting healthy boundaries. Both sets of parents helped with our down payment. We bought the house just under a year ago, and it is my husband and my name on the deed. In conversations about changes we would like to make on the house, his parents constantly say we need to do this or we need to do that, for stuff that we hadn't even thought about. They have brought up the garage door lift before because it is old but still fully functional. Sometimes I feel like they think it's their house, and that they have a say because of the down payment help, which again said it was a gift. A similar incident happened this summer where his mother called a pool service for something we were fully capable of fixing ourselves, and she knew we had it handled. My now husband yelled at her and she punished him by ignoring his calls and texts for days. It got to the point where he apologized to her. I think I got everything, but please let me know if there is any further context I can provide or questions I can answer. I want to ensure everyone has a full picture of the situation. Now for the top comments. A gift doesn't come with a price tag. They, the parents, made a purchase, so they, the parents, are responsible for paying, not the a-hole. I don't understand how Opie or her husband could even be liable for the bill. They never signed a contract. Legally, it would be between the in-laws and the business, would it not? Yeah, I'd ask the tradesmen why they did work on a home without agreement of the owner. Flip it and demand they restore the garage. Not the a-hole. I would call the company that installed it and tell them you did not contract nor authorize this work. They need to collect payment from the people / parties who hired them, which you do not do. You're right. Your husband's parents have no perspective or boundaries. The mother's reaction when their son tried to illustrate their inappropriate behavior says it all. Last of all, you should stay out of it. You and hubby seem to be on the same page, but let him deal with them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents that I will no longer be supporting my train wreck sister? My 26 male sister was the favorite. She always got the best things and always got fancy birthdays with all her friends. While I got a crappy cake with one candle that she blew out, and my parents told me to be grateful. When my parents told her she needed to get a job because she blew their money on clothes and bags, she blew up on them, telling them that they are selfish. Then she went to a club, got knocked up by some guy, and told my parents. I had a job and made decent money at this point, and they told me that I had to pitch in and help her, which I agreed to because she's my sister. Also, forgot to mention, my grandparents left us some money for school, wedding, car, first house, etc. This was when we turned 25. When it was my birthday, I was so excited for the next day because then I could move out of my parents' house. I asked my dad to drive me, but he said, "Oh, I don't need to drive you." Me, why? Dad, because your sister needs that money for the baby. I blew up on him, telling him it wasn't his money to give. He told me I was being selfish, and so did my mom and sister when they heard the commotion. So I said, "Me? I'm selfish? Do you know what's selfish? Getting knocked up by some guy at a club that you don't even know his name, and then stealing money from your brother who has been helping you with your screw up, then calling him selfish." Before they could say something, I left to get in my crappy Toyota that my crappy dad handed me down. My sister has a BMW, by the way. I went to the lawyer that gave us my grandparents' will, and I asked him what I can do. He told me that it shouldn't be a problem because the fund is in your name, and they can't change that. The only person that has been on my side is my fiancé. My parents called me up to ask me to talk. Stupidly, I thought they were going to give me the money back, which they didn't. They then asked me how much money I was going to give my sister, and she spent the money for the year I gave her on drugs and alcohol. I told them that I would not be giving my sister money anymore, and that was their problem and to never contact me again. They then texted me calling me an a-hole, so I blocked them. Am I wrong here? Not the a-hole. You're right, it isn't their money to give. They don't get to reallocate money to your sister because they really want to do that. You've already helped your sister. Why should you continue to enable her? As a teen, she got so much money from my parents I can't even count. She was even ungrateful for it, saying she should have gotten more. Well, they can deal with her then. They don't get to decide that you have to deal with her. I'm sorry for the kid. If she can't take care of a child, then they need to explore other options for her. Not just take all your money to ensure she can take care of the baby. Not the a-hole. Good on you for blocking them. Definitely go no contact. Those people will never see you as an equal and will always expect you to help your sister out. Good luck getting money back from them. Sounds like they took it out of your trust or something. If they don't give money back, maybe look into suing them for it. They took it out of my trust, and I'm thinking of suing. You should sue, but I'm curious, how did they take money from your trust? Were your parents supposed to be the executors, or did someone forge something to access it? Because if they were not supposed to be able to, then there is even a bigger issue. I don't know what they did. I think they forged something. They never told me, and my lawyers never told me either. If they forged signatures or such, you can also potentially go to the police for identity theft, /fraud, /etc. I don't want to send them to jail because they are my parents. But then again, all three of them made my life miserable. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepsister our stepsister thinks she's not good enough for her fiancé? I have 2 stepsisters and a bio sister. My bio sister, Elia, is getting married soon. Our oldest stepsister, Hannah, hadn't met Elia's fiancé until this recent incident, as she lives in Dubai and we live in London. Elia's future in-laws hosted an engagement party for them, which Hannah came here for. Elia introduced her fiancé to Hannah, but then had to leave as her fiancé wanted to introduce her to the other guests. After she left, Hannah kept asking us if that was really Elia's fiancé. My other stepsister kept saying, "I know." Hannah kept cracking jokes about how Elia managed to trick him into dating her, and how they didn't match as a couple. At one point, she said she would have thought he would want somebody more at his and his family's level. At first, I wasn't going to say anything to Elia, since I know it would just upset her and Hannah claimed to be joking. But we're all going to be bridesmaids. And I know it's going to come with some nice gifts and at least one free trip, which I don't think Hannah deserves after what she said. So, I told Elia, and she was really upset that she started crying. Her fiancé saw and now he doesn't want either of my stepsisters at the wedding and has uninvited them from all pre-wedding activities. This has caused a lot of drama in my family, and my stepsisters and stepdad are really angry at me. My mom told me that sometimes it's best not to say anything, especially since I've made Elia feel so insecure that she's trying to convince her fiancé that they should just have a small courthouse wedding. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The heck is with all these YTAs? If I was put in the same situation, absolutely I would tell my bio sister what my stepsisters were saying. How cruel and mean of them. We all should be applauding your sister's fiancé not taking their wicked stepsister's nonsense and standing up for her. They're just angry they aren't going to get free expensive stuffs. Exactly. Like I 100% would tell any of my step-siblings, and they would tell me. The mom defending the stepsisters too, instead of defending her own daughters. It's better not to say anything. Why? Because it's uncomfortable for Opie's mother to admit she married into a vapid, rude, and nasty family? Sisters for life. Not the a-hole. They were not cracking jokes. They're just jealous of your sister and projecting their insecurities at her. If I were your sister, I would want to know. And the fiancé did a correct thing by uninviting them. Kudos. Right? One quick jab can be considered a joke, but if you keep repeating it over and over, I'm going to think you're actually speaking your mind under the protection of it's just a prank, sis. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She really did deserve to know her bridesmaids were being a-holes repeatedly behind her back. What jerks. Have your stepsisters always been mean to Elia? Anyway, I do feel bad for your sister though, but like I said, she deserved to know despite it being painful. When we were younger, we all used to fight a lot, but I would say it was just regular sibling rivalry, and Elia wasn't targeted more than anybody else. They sound like the type to try to seduce your sister's fiancé because they think they are good enough for him. Award, cause yes. The biggest problem is that if they're so entitled to talk about Elia and her fiancé like that in her own sister's presence, they're the type to try more nefarious schemes later on. Last story. Am I the a-hole for expecting compensation from my sister because her son ripped my passport? Last week, I, female 21, was supposed to go to Paris for a week with my friends. My niece, Jenny, 6, was understandably very jealous when she found out we'd be spending a few days in Disneyland and started begging me to take her. I told her I couldn't, but promised to bring back presents for her and Sam, 2.5, my nephew. My sister, Kate, 26, even said that maybe they could go on their holiday next year. This wasn't good enough for Jenny, so she started whinging and then screaming, so my sister took her home. This was last week, Wednesday. Then they came around on Sunday, the day before I was due to leave. I was packing my suitcase and had all the things I was taking spread around my room. My passport was on my desk. But when I went to pack it, it was gone. I couldn't find it anywhere. Neither had my parents or my sister. We finally found it in the possession of my nephew, and it ripped through the page with my photo, rendering it useless. When my sister asked him what he was doing with it, he told us that Jenny had given it to him. My sister started interrogating Jenny, and she finally admitted that it wasn't fair that I got to go to Disney and she didn't. So she gave it to Sam and told him they were playing hide and seek with it. She's been abroad and knows that I can't go without my passport. There was no time to get a new passport, so I didn't get to go on the holiday I'd been saving ages for, and it was too late to get a refund. The cost of the holiday, the park tickets I'd already paid for, and the replacement passport totals £725, and I told my sister I want her to pay me back. She said that Sam is too young and he didn't know what he was doing. I told her I believed that, but her daughter knew full well what she was doing. I did tell her if she couldn't do it in one go, I was happy to accept installments. She refused, and she and her partner are acting like I'm an a-hole. My mom and dad are siding with me though, and telling them they should pay me back. My sister said they'd have to take the money out of the savings they have for the kids' Christmas presents. And was I happy for taking away their Christmas? I reminded her she didn't have to pay in one go. Added to answer some frequently asked questions. I looked into an emergency passport and claiming on my insurance. An emergency passport takes a week, and I was due to travel the next day. Insurance does not cover you if you don't have a passport prior to traveling, only if it's lost while on holiday. My niece has been punished. My sister told her that there was absolutely no way they'd be going to Disney next year. I also gave her my own form of punishment. My friends still went on holiday and I gave them some of my euros to get me some Disney swag. I asked them if they could get a Nemo cuddly for my nephew. He's Nemo mad. I didn't blame him for the incident because he's so young. I made a big show of making it clear niece got nothing, but that she would have if she hadn't taken my passport and she'd brought it on herself. I still had an older burgundy passport. The photo page was paper and easily ripped. Not the a-hole. It should come out of their Christmas. The kids damaged your passport and caused you to miss vacation and lose significant money. A loss of some Christmas gifts would be a lesson to them, at least the older one who knows better, and to the parents. Yeah, the eldest might not fully understand it, but she was vindictive enough to destroy something she knew Opie needed to go. So it should be made abundantly clear as in Opie's edit that she isn't going to Disneyland, why the innocent toddler got a present, and why at Christmas she will get less gifts. Even if that has to be played off as Santa didn't bring us many, it's a naughty and nice list for Pete's sake. It's terrible jealous behavior, and she needs to learn a harsh lesson. Her parents should just pay Opie because she's owed its end of. Not the a-hole. It's not your fault her daughter is a spoiled brat that thinks she can get whatever she wants, however she wants. Jenny deliberately gave Sam the passport, and regardless of who ruined it, it is ruined. Jenny's little jealousy stunt cost you a vacation and now a useless passport. The least her mom could do is reimburse you for her children's mess. Oof, I can see Jenny staying an entitled kid and doing much, much worse throughout the years if her mother doesn't put the clamps on that straight away. Jenny will probably never forget this and will be vindictive towards Opie at some point. Not the a-hole. It's just common decency to cover the expensive damage your child does. Why should you eat the cost that her child cost? My sister said they'd have to take the money out of the savings they have for the kids' Christmas presents. That will be fine. A sound learning lesson for the kids. Am I the a-hole for telling people my dad died? My 23 female father, 48 male, and I had a wonderful relationship while I was growing up. Around the time I turned 15 or 16, he checked out completely. My mom confronted him about cheating and he admitted to several. They end up separating over the summer and we move halfway across the country right before Christmas. He falls off the face of the earth until the day we are moving out completely. He shows up to grab some things, hugs, and says goodbye. I never hear anything from him after that. I did try to reach out to him a few times during my senior year. I would get inconsistent replies and few times downright evil responses, which I later found out were his now wife at a time. My father promised he would be at graduation, asked for the information, and I even promised to give him a ticket. My school only gave out 10. A week before graduation, I found out through social media that he isn't coming. The wife posts a photo of plane tickets saying they were going to some resort in Mexico for 2 weeks. I lost it. I'm inconsolable for almost an hour. When I finally calmed down, I deleted him and the wife, blocked them. He tries to reach out via text hours after I graduate to say he's proud of me and happy that I graduated and that he loves me, and I don't even respond. Over the next few years, he gets married to Evil's stepmother. They have a child together that I never met, which I only found out in one of the sparse phone calls I got from them when she casually drops that she's pregnant and the baby is due in a few weeks. He rekindled a relationship with his father, a man I never met because he abandoned my father after he was born and made a new family. He also almost died in a car accident, but I didn't find out until my paternal grandma calls to ask me to call and check on him because of it. At some point in my early 20s, I just decided that the man I knew as my dad died. The man I knew wouldn't do or fathom half of the things this man has done. This person now looks and sounds like my father, but he isn't my dad. Starting that day forward, whenever people ask, I just say that my dad died. If people ask for information, I don't mind explaining a quick summary of this, but most people leave it alone. My paternal grandmother must have overheard me talking to a friend or something and asked me why I say that my dad died. So I explained it to her. And while it hurt, she understood. Somehow, though, this got back to father and his wife who have been calling and texting me incessantly to tell me I'm a brat and ungrateful for everything they've done for me, and that I shouldn't be saying that because he tried to parent as best he could. They said I'm trying to turn his mom, paternal grandmother, against them, and that I need to call to apologize. I don't feel I'm completely the a-hole here, but I do feel a little guilty that my grandmother has started to see my father and wife differently, and I don't want it to affect her relationship with my half-sister. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He's not dead. He is to me. It's a perfectly legitimate stance. If parenting the best he could includes cheating on your mom, leaving, and starting a new family and abandoning, they should probably avoid appeals to the all highlight reel. Dear Dad, you need to hurry and pick up your feelings. Not the a-hole. You forgot going on vacation after promising to be at graduation. Heck, I would have been far less civil than you've been. Just throw it all back in Dad's face when it's done. I was the best parent I could be. Well, that's a pretty sad thought. Lol, if that was the best he could do, he never should have had a kid, let alone two. You're not responsible for irresponsible parents and their poor choices in life. I'm sorry you've had to deal with this. Not the a-hole at all. Thank you for this. I really appreciate your comment. I was always baffled myself, considering he eventually did to me what his father did to him. You can rekindle with him after 40 plus years, but not me after several? OP, I hope you know this. Your dad's behavior does not stem from you. There's likely nothing you could do or not do to cause him to suddenly be the person to you that he should be. Even now, they're upset, not because of how they treated you, but because they've been called out on it. You are within your rights to say, due to how this person has treated me, they are dead to me. And I'm sorry for how he treated you, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not helping my parents pay for my sister to go to rehab? My sister is addicted to opioids. She's been using for 12 years now. She began using during her first year of university. She was living away from home and had just turned 18 years old, and she got into the party scene at her school and was regularly using both opioids and cocaine. It got so bad she was expelled after 1 year, and she lost her scholarship. She stopped using coke, but she continued using opioids. I will add that she's never had an injury or surgery that required taking them, and she has never had a legal prescription for them. In the last 12 years, she has been in prison more than once. She has been to rehab multiple times. When not in rehab or prison, she alternates between being homeless or staying with us or one of our brothers. Now my parents are sending her to rehab again, and they ask me to help pay for it. I have helped pay for her past trips to rehab. I've spent $20,000 on it in the past. This time, I told my parents I'm done. Does that make me an a-hole? I was devastated when my sister started using and I tried to help. But she repaid me by trying to steal my identity, which she failed, thank God, and nothing happened. And has made the lives of everyone around her miserable, including mine. I am done with her. She's dead to me, and I want nothing to do with this. I'm the only one not contributing money this time. My parents, all of my brothers, and both sets of my grandparents are all giving. Again. I'm the only family member my sister has who isn't contributing, and I'm getting pressure for this reason. My parents want $10,000 from me, and they say that since I make more than that in a month, it should be no problem. They're trying to guilt me with the she's family card and saying that because I'm the only one of them who went to university and the highest earner, that I should be helping. I'm getting called a bad sister and daughter for not helping. I'm asking here because none of you knows us or are emotionally invested or involved. I know she's family, so am I being too harsh here? Does saying no to helping make me the a-hole like my family thinks? Am I wrong here? Thank you for reading my post. Please be honest with me. Not the a-hole. This is tough, but as someone who came from a family rife with addictions on one side, you sound like you've already contributed a lot of money, and she's continually relapsed. As we learned in my family, there comes a time when you just need to stop. You've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this, and she's repaid you by making you miserable and stealing from you. Remember that no one can help your sister if she doesn't want to be helped. She's been afforded opportunity after opportunity by you. If you need someone to say it, then I will. You've done enough. You can stop now if you want to. You are not the a-hole. Your family are the a-holes for trying to force you and guilt you into it. Wish you the best, Opie. It's a hard situation, I know. My aunt was similar. Lifelong drug addict, stole from us, etc. Eventually, we just had to take a step back. It hurts, but it's the right thing to do. This was my aunt too. Started with Lortab and Soma, moved on to Oxy and heroin that we know of. She went to rehab at least 5 to 6 times, paid for by the family and jail in between. Once for stealing money and painkillers from my grandma, her own mother who was bedridden after a hip replacement. She alienated one family member after another. My final straw was when she called me from jail, I was 16 at the time, to try to get me to call my grandma who'd cut off contact to get her to send more money. It broke my heart because I'd grown up spending summers with her, and she was a sweet, generous woman before the opioids took hold. They never let go. She passed a few years ago. Opie is not the a-hole. At a certain point, you can't be responsible anymore. Not the a-hole, and this is coming from a recovering addict. She's not going to stop until she's ready, and you and your family are just throwing money down the drain. She's not going to get better with everyone enabling her either, which is what it sounds like her relationship with your parents is. Do they often excuse her behavior and run to the rescue just because she's family? If so, then their help is likely a big part of the problem. Next story. Am I the a-hole for paying for my biological sons to come on a family vacation but not my stepdaughters? My wife, 46 female, and I, 45 male, have been married for 6 years. We don't have any children together, but we both have kids from previous relationships. I have 2 sons, 18 and 15. My wife has 3 daughters, 27, 25, and 23. None of our kids live with us full-time, but I have my sons 3 weeks a month, and they stay with us a lot during the summer after school is out. My 18-year-old is going to college in the fall, so I wanted to do something special before he goes off to adulthood. My wife and I decided to do a family vacation with all of our kids, something we have never done before. Obviously, since my sons are in high school, they don't have the money to pay for themselves, so I will be paying for them. My 18-year-old wants to bring his girlfriend, so I'm paying for half of her trip too. Her parents are paying the other half. When we talked to my stepdaughters about the trip, we told them that they would have to pay their own way if they want to join us. All 3 of them work full-time, and the older 2 have long-term partners they want to bring with as well. Simply put, we can't afford to pay for all of them, and since they are older and earn their own money, it makes sense they will pay their own way. They were fine with that at first, even though there were a few complaints about the destination, but you can't make everyone happy. But then, the oldest found out we are paying for my son's trips and half of the girlfriends, but not helping my stepdaughters at all. And the 3 of them ganged up on me during this past weekend while they were at our house. They said that since we are paying for my sons, the fair thing would be to pay for them too, including half of the partner's trips. I explained the difference in the circumstances regarding the ages of my sons and the fact that all 3 of my stepdaughters work full-time and earn their own money. But that fell on deaf ears, and they said that if we don't pay for them too, none of them are coming. That's how the conversation ended, and now my wife is frantically trying to figure out how to make this work and keep everyone happy. But we simply can't afford to pay for everyone, especially working adults. I'm tempted to just cancel the trip and take my boys on a smaller trip, just us. But my wife hates that idea because she has her mindset on our first family vacation, all or nothing. So I told my wife that if her girls aren't willing to pay for themselves, then we have 2 options. Cancel the trip completely or go without them. I'm not willing to negotiate with them on this because we can't afford to pay for them. It's that simple. My wife thinks we should find ways to pay for her daughters now too. But financially, that's just not possible. And I feel like the trip is being held hostage by my stepdaughters. I understand it might not seem fair to them, but my boys are in high school, not adults working full-time jobs. Now for the comments. Change the trip up. Rent a chalet or camp somewhere for a week and invite everyone to stay there. Beach, mountains, wherever. Way cheaper and everyone is involved. And there are no excuses then. That's what we're doing. We're renting a beach house. No paying for single rooms. Split cost of the house. Stepdaughters are upset we're not subsidizing their travel costs like we are for literal teenagers. Not the a-hole. Cancel the family trip and do something with your sons. Definitely not the a-hole. I just went on a family trip where me and my husband paid for ourselves. And my parents paid for my sister and her boyfriend because me and my husband have jobs. And my sister and her boyfriend are in uni. Lol. I don't understand why fully adult people think that other adults should go into debt for them. Not the a-hole. This seems perfectly reasonable given their ages. They are interpreting this as being a biological/step distinction, whereas you are making the distinction fairly based on age/employment. This is a fight they are picking with you, not one you started. Do not negotiate with terrorists. Not a-hole. I think trying to arrange a family trip when the older daughters are working adults with partners is a bit screwy though. Once I was out of college, I didn't really go on trips with my childhood family, and I paid my own way on a few things I did participate in. I would cancel the whole mess and take your boys on a trip. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not posting family pictures with my stepson? I, 31 female, have a stepson that is 11 male. I've been in his life since he was 2, and he lives with us part-time. That being said, I have a great relationship with his mom. Ever since she got out a few years ago, we went to 50-50 custody almost immediately. We have agreed on everything and respected each other's wishes. One of her wishes was that she no longer wanted my husband or I to post pictures of my stepson online. Not a big deal. We know there are creepers out there. Fast forward to Easter time, I had some professional pictures of us as a family. Myself, hubby, stepson, and baby son. I don't ever spend on professional photos, but I got a great Groupon, and since the holiday was a few weeks away, I figured why not. About 95% of the pictures were all together. However, I got a few photos of just myself, my hubby, and baby, so I could get a new profile picture for social media. Anyway, we get the finished edited photos a few weeks later, and I print a bunch. I give family photos to everyone including mother-in-law plus father-in-law and/uncles and my stepson's mother. She loved the photos and even hung one in her house. After that, I downloaded the digital ones and posted the pictures of myself, hubby, and baby. I was very careful not to put any pictures of stepson on social media. They all look alike in a folder, per his mother's request. About a day after I had posted it, I got a really aggressive text message from stepson's mom. She said she didn't appreciate the fact I had posted family pictures and made her son feel bad. I texted back and said I didn't understand. She didn't want his pictures on social media. Also, how would he know about it when he isn't on social media? It has been 24 hours, and she hasn't messaged me back. But I took down the profile picture anyway. Did I cross some sort of line? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She's upset because you honored her wishes. There's no winning with some people. It sounds like she made that request when the son was much younger and may have forgotten about it herself. I almost lean towards no a-holes here until there's more communication about everyone's expectations. Mom actually behaved like an a-hole. You don't just launch on someone that you have a relationship with. You call and talk to them like a grown adult. Not a-hole. Sounds like someone forgot she asked you to do exactly what you did. Not at all surprised she hasn't responded yet. Yes, she must have forgotten. I think it's possible someone told her about the photo and, unaware of their agreement, made a big deal to her about it. Then, because a big deal was made at that moment, she forgot the arrangement that was made and got mad at Opie. She probably doesn't want to respond now because she remembers asking them not to post, and saying something now will be admitting she made a mistake. It could also be that the post of a family photo is what triggered it. She might have a knee-jerk reaction like, "Oh, I see you post a photo of the family, but my son isn't in it, so I guess you don't really see him as a family." She forgot about the request and thought it was a pointed dig, when in fact, if she had given the okay to post pictures of him, they would have posted the picture with everyone in it, and now she's embarrassed. If Opie hasn't already, she could send her some pictures with all of them together and assure her that the stepkid was included. And the only reason they didn't post the photo with all of them is that they were under the impression she didn't want pictures of him on social media. But if she's cool with it, they'll happily post the entire family one.